Now tonight, Witness News exclusive, part 3 of Central Valley cold cases. February 14th, 1996, a dad, husband, brother, and son shot dead at a dairy in Fresno County.
Decades later, many questions are left unanswered. And tonight, CBS 47's Mederios Babb digs into the cold case.
This Valentine's Day marks 29 years since Joe Camara was shot on the job. The case continues to puzzle investigators, with many in his family wondering who shot Joe.
It was the early morning, and my sister called me. And she said something happened to Joe.
Thick Tule fog blanketing the valley in the early morning hours of February 14th, 1996.
You know, in this area, when the fog comes down, a lot of crooks go out and commit their crimes.
That Valentine's Day started as normal for 35-year-old Joe Camara. Before the sun was up, he headed to work at the Souza Dairy, ironically located on Valentine Avenue.
Joe, from what we looked at, I mean, he's really good at his job. He knew what he was doing, and he did this every morning.
I couldn't hardly stand it when he walked in that room that night.
Judy Camara met the love of her life in October of 1989.
He was a cowboy, and that was my kind of thing at that time. He walked in the bar, and that was that.
By Christmas, they were engaged, and in May of 1990, they were married. A few years later, they welcomed their first son, Adam.
He was pretty nervous about having a child, but once Adam was born, he would come in the house, go straight to the bassinet.
Camara lived a simple life, with his main priority providing for his family. That day in 1996, he was scooping feed and taking it out to the cattle on the dairy when things took a turn. His killer shot him, taking the young father's life.
From the way everything was set up, I believe he was shot only one time.
Later that morning, Camara's co-workers found his lifeless body and called the sheriff's office.
He was laying next to a big loader that he was still running.
Detective Chris Curtis worked the case.
This is probably one of the cases that's a regret for me that we never were able to arrest anybody in it, but I think that somebody is probably out there still that knows what happened. This case could still be solved.
He says, based on the crime scene, they believe the killer stood on pallets or some type of wood before firing through an opening.
And there was an opening in the wall right near where Joe had been working on the loader. And they stood on top here and actually aimed through the opening and fired once, killing him.
With this case, did you guys think that it was targeted at him?
Well, it sure seemed like it. It seemed like a hit, but we couldn't find anything in his past or with any of his family, anything that would lead us to believe that that it was a hit. I think as we went on with the case, we looked into everything about him, and he was a very simple man.
For Joe's sister, Angela, who was born only 18 months after her brother, that gloomy day in February of 1996 is one she'll never forget.
A part of me died when he died.
Judy left to care for their 3-year-old son, Adam, alone.
How am I going to tell this poor child his daddy's gone? He remembers me sitting him on the bed, on his grandma's bed, and telling him that his daddy died and he's not coming home.
A father taken from his young son. A brother taken from his 2 sisters. A mother and father burying their child. The senseless act of violence puzzling investigators. Because Joe Camara lived such a simple life, like many cases, the first ones investigated are the family.
The first people they look at is family, and especially the wife.
Judy underwent a lie detector test.
And I was more than willing to do whatever I could, but it was a little unnerving to do the polygraph, to say the least.
Once she was ruled out, it was back to the crime scene, looking for tracks, fingerprints, and other clues.
There was really nothing we could point to that would make our spidey senses go up, if you will. So then we started thinking outside, okay, could this have been a theft or a robbery gone wrong?
During that time, egg theft was on the rise, with the number of dairies targeted.
I know it's been a long time, but from your recollection, does it seem like there was any hay or fuel that was taken on that day?
No, and I would think if there was a shooting as a result of a theft, it was probably that Joe interrupted something.
Did thieves target the Sousa Dairy that Valentine's Day? Did Camara witness a theft and step in? Those were all theories at the time, but as the days went on, the leads dried up.
I can't even fathom taking somebody's life. And I can't fathom how somebody can take someone's life and just go on about their merry business of life. You know, they're living their life, and my husband's in the grave.
Looking for answers, Judy reached out to the governor's office, securing a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. It's a reward that stands today. As time ticked by, the tight-knit Portuguese family having no choice but to move on without answers.
I got to a point where, I wanted to find out. I wanted to know, like, right away who did it and why. But then I got to a point, well, what's the use? It's not going to bring him back. But you still want to know who and why.
Adam moved to Alaska, and he got engaged. The wedding, a milestone that Joe will not be there for. Still, for Judy and Angela, hope remains that one day a person will come forward.
But it's my hope now that if somebody was too afraid to talk back then, that they will come forward now.
Next Wednesday, we dive into a cold case of a former Kern County Sheriff deputy. We have a preview coming up tonight at 11. Reporting from the studio, Mederios, Babb, CBS 47 Eyewitness News.